Since the late 90s and the early 2000s, the Honda Odyssey has always been the king of school parking lots and carpool. And people that know me know I'm a sucker for the Honda Odyssey. So let's take a look at Honda's spaceship on wheels and what's possibly the last of the 5th generation Odyssey. Special thanks to my friend Mike for letting us check out this pearly beast today. And this Odyssey in particular is a 2023 Elite in platinum white pearl. I give everyone full authority to call me a loser, but I think this is a pretty sharp looking van. Something else that's sharp, and I'm not talking about the looks, is the price. The MSRP of this Odyssey is a hair over $51,000. However, this one has a $4,000 markup on it, so this one is about $56,000 out the door. Honda has actually discontinued the LX model for 2023, but they've added a sport trim, but it's supposed to fit over the EXL. Because of this, I smell the next generation Odyssey coming out somewhat soon. But a now base Odyssey EX has an MSRP of around $37,000, a little bit more than a Pilot LX. For the first time in a little while, the Odyssey actually gets a different wheel option for every trim level in the lineup. Base EX and EXL will start on an 18-inch alloy wheel, while Sport, Touring, and Elite trims like this Elite will have 19s, and they're all different designs. But one of the first things that I would do if this was my Odyssey is put the OEM roof rack on it. The Odyssey has thankfully only had one tried and true engine option throughout the years, and that still remains to be a fact today. And unlike the hybrid-only Toyota Sienna, the Odyssey still uses a naturally aspirated V6. It's a 3.5-liter single overhead cam unit, also known as the J35Y6, so it's different than the engine in the brand new Pilot. This one still has VTEC, and power figures are 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Power only goes to the front wheels and a 10-speed automatic transmission. If you're looking for all-wheel drive, I would suggest looking at the Toyota Sienna and the Chrysler Pacifica. Those are the only two vans right now that offer all-wheel drive. And as far as fuel economy is concerned, Honda claims 19 in the city, 28 on the highway, and a combined rating of 22. That is lower than the Toyota Sienna, which gets mid-30s, but you get a little bit more power out of it. As far as reliability is concerned, this engine is pretty stout. The J35, not this exact one, is derived from the J30 V6, a 3-liter V6, way like 23 years ago with the 6th gen Accord. These use timing belts, not timing chains, and I would replace the belt around 70 to 100,000 miles. So I hope to God that everyone and their grandma knows that the minivan will always be the most practical family vehicle over an SUV. Odyssey Elite gets a hands-free kick tailgate. Actually works pretty well, and the trunk of these is cavernous. One of the features I would say the Odyssey lacks in compared to its competition is a power folding third row seat. It's not that big of a deal for me because look at how easy this folds down. With one go, and it folds completely flat. Behind the third row seat, you get up to 38 cubic feet of volume. That's bigger than some small SUVs, like, you know, the really tiny ones. With the third row seat folded flat like this, you get up to 93 cubic feet of volume. And then when you remove the second row seats, because unfortunately they do not fold, you can get up to 158 cubic feet of volume. And if what you're hauling is not inside the car, the Odyssey can tow up to 3,500 pounds. Space in the third row isn't that bad either. And even getting in, being my 5'9" stature, isn't that bad either. If I bring the seat all the way back, so this is its farthest most position, I still have like 2 or 3 inches of legroom, and my feet can fit under the seat. My feet can, God, why do I always do that? My feet can fit under the seat very comfortably. The seat bottom is just high enough that it's actually pretty comfortable back here. Headroom is also excellent. Like I said, I'm 5'9". Plus, I think 3 of me could fit back here really comfortably. There's 4 cup holders back here. Thankfully, there's also rear air vents and also a USB port and a normal power outlet. They also did think about us third row dwellers back here because you still have sunshades. As we get into the back, of course, the Odyssey has power sliding rear doors, but unlike, I believe, the Chrysler Pacifica and also the Toyota Sienna, and maybe even the Kia Carnival, you don't have hands-free power sliding doors. At least, I'm sure of it because it doesn't, try to chop my leg off. Getting in is really easy though. That's one of the things I love about minivans, and there's these little buttons that you can close the door. Our third gen Odyssey didn't have those, and I was always jealous of that button. Now, this being an Odyssey, the second row seat is very well accommodating. I have gobs of legroom. The driver's seat is actually in its easy exit mode, and I'm 5'9", like I said. I can fit my feet under the seat, and great legroom. There's map pockets on both sides of the seat. The seats are comfortable, the second row seats. These can slide forwards and backwards, and they can also recline like this, pretty far out. The second row seat of the Odyssey is a 40-20-40 split middle seat. So that gives you this armrest, well, this third seat that doubles as an armrest with 3 cup holders and a little cubby. But this is also removable, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Of course, there's cup holders everywhere, even behind the center console, and underneath those 2 cup holders is an HDMI port and 2 USB Type-A ports. This also has a rear zone for the climate, and the controls are on the passenger side on the ceiling. Something else that's on the ceiling is this huge, massive technology, this LCD screen back here. But you can stream Netflix and Hulu and all those other streaming services, and you can also plug in an Xbox or something to the HDMI, in addition to the Blu-ray DVD player. There's so much in here for them kids. If you're wondering where the spare tire is, it's actually underneath, in between the 2 front rows. It's right here, but you have to slide the 2 front seats to get it out. I also wanted to show off the trick features of the middle seat. So like I said, you can flip this down. If you pull this little cord here, it'll unlatch the back and remove the middle seat. It's not that heavy. Well, it's heavy, but it's not that heavy. And now you can either choose to leave the 2 captain's seats separate from each other, or just like old minivans, if you remember the ones without the driver's side door, you can actually have the 2 seats next to each other like this. So it's like a van, an actual van. You can have them this way. You can pull this and have this go this way. There's so many different configurations of how you can have your Odyssey's second row seats. One of the most important seats of this van is the seat of the commander of this battleship. But I always love being inside Odysseys because they're so spacious. The 5th gen Odyssey really adds on to that space. There's so many cup holders, there's so many storage compartments in the door, and even underneath between your seats too. That's crazy. Wow. You have a 4-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel that was introduced on this Odyssey, and it was also on the last gen Pilot. There's a few buttons on it. On the left side of the wheel, those buttons control the Bluetooth and audio controls, and also the information display in the gauges. And on the right side, those buttons control the cruise control and the heated steering wheel button. For some reason, in this VTEC van, you have paddle shifters, which we shall, I guess, see how they work later. There's a whole control center of buttons on the left side of the dash. There's buttons to open and close the power sliding doors, and also the power tailgate. One of the things at this price point that I would expect and I don't see is a 360 view camera. It's not a huge deal, but for something as big as this, it's something that I would appreciate. I wasn't that big of a fan of the gauges when this Odyssey first came out, and I'm still not that fond of it, but it's mostly digital, and there's an analog coolant temperature and fuel gauge. Everything else is completely digital, including the tach and the speedometer, but there's not a lot of customization in the menus, just a lot of information. You can also see what's playing in terms of audio. Odyssey seats have always been comfortable, and this Odyssey certainly does not disappoint. Both the driver and passenger side seats are full 8-way power adjustable with 4-way lumbar. Both of the seats. they're also heated and cooled. They're not crazy supportive, but they'd be great on long drives. I could do a cross-country drive in this with ease, especially with the adaptive cruise control and the lane keep assist. The center stack has been the same since the 2018 redesign. It's a 9-inch touchscreen display. It uses Honda's latest version of their Honda Link system. It only supports wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so I guess it's not the latest. Honda still offers cabin watch, which lets you look at the children in the back seat. The children, and you can zoom in on the children, and you can talk to the children in the third row using Cabin Talk. This, of course, also has the higher caliber audio system, which sounds pretty good, but it's just an in-house Honda built one. If you put the van into reverse, you have a backup camera with guidance lines that do steer with the wheel. There's also 3 different camera angles, like a wide view, a normal view, and a top-down view. And of course you have rear cross-traffic alert. The climate controls are triple zone. I do like that they're hard touch buttons, but Honda also lets you configure the climate in the screen as well for the front and rear. I think they did a pretty good job with molding this push button shifter into the dash. I do miss the old crunk, clunky shifter of the old Odysseys of yesteryear. There's one USB port, a normal 2-prong power outlet, and another car charger power outlet, but there's no USB Type-C in this car. A little hidey hole that you can put things is actually underneath the front cup holders. There's a pretty decently sized storage bin to put things in there. There's so many cup holders in this car, and they're all big. There's also a wireless charger, which can support most big phones now. The center console is reasonably sized, and there's also a USB port and an aux jack. There's a lot of USB in this car, so I'm glad that they thought of capability, well, connectivity. Everything does feel really well built though, because if I, move anything, nothing creaks or rattles or sounds cheap. This feels like a really well built van. It doesn't feel like Acura levels of quality, but pretty up there. The Odyssey also only has a standard sized moonroof. We are going to see how the power is, so I'm going to put myself in sport transmission mode, and we're going to wait. Let's see how the power is. This will be the first time. Wow, it's actually quick. Wow, this moved better than I thought it would. I mean, I expected this to be pretty playful, but not like this. Wow, this actually feels a little bit more pokey than the J35 Y8 in the new Pilot. Let's see. Things are definitely more chill when you're just driving this normally though. The engine is pretty quiet, the transmission shifts very smooth, the ride is compliant. This thing, because it has a really long wheelbase, just glides over everything. Of course, it's not going to feel like an MDX or something like that, but it feels very good for a minivan. And as I'm driving, nothing's rattling or creaking. This feels very well built. We're going to see how passing this guy is. This thing really picks up and screams, and I'm gonna miss the VTEC that's in this engine and the lack of VTEC in the new 3.5, because this thing really screams. Of course, it's not gonna feel like an Accord, really light, but I don't really feel like I'm driving something as big as I am. Of course, I feel far away from the camera, but that's all. At higher speeds, the steering goes from light and very easy to maneuver around parking lots to direct and pretty focused on the road. This doesn't really wander around like old vans. Granted, the Odyssey has always been one of the better driving minivans out there. The Odyssey also still lacks an electrified variant. I'm not that pressed on it myself, but I know one of the things about van ownership is fuel economy. So I do understand where a hybrid van like a Sienna or even the Pacifica would be handy. Not even the Kia Carnival comes in a hybrid. And ultimately, the decision of the van that works best for you is your choice. All the vans in this segment are pretty good. I just like the Odyssey because I'm an Odyssey boy. You might like the Sienna more because of the hybrid, And the Sienna does look cool. It looks like a bullet train. I know minivans aren't the most exciting vehicles to drive, but this one, being a van, is pretty fun. It can get the wheels loose a little bit. But I hope you enjoyed watching this video of this 2023 Odyssey Elite, and I hope that you learned some Odyssey trivia so you can be a nerd like me. Ka-chow! But once again, special thanks to Mike at Sport Honda for letting us look at this Odyssey today. Stay tuned for many videos just like this to come in the future and beyond, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, peeps.